Hi, and welcome to Inspiring People. Today we're here with John Richardson. He's a writer, a speaker, and entrepreneur from Northern Ireland. Following an eclectic career in the hospitality industry, where he owned a large variety of businesses such as coffee shops, sandwich bars, and restaurants, he set about a seemingly impossible golf challenge in 2005. The resulting book, Dream On, has been a huge commercial and critical hit on both sides of the Atlantic and is soon to be a major motion picture. Hi John, how are you?
I'm good. Good to see you.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and where you were born.
Born in Northern Ireland, and I still live in Northern Ireland. I live in a little town called Bangor, just outside Belfast, with my wife and 14-year-old daughter. I do most of my work on this side of the water, but Northern Ireland's actually a great place to live these days. And as I say, I commute backwards and forwards and advise the coffee shop industry, and then we do lots of work with corporate bodies and also working with golfers too.
Was there anybody in particular that inspired you when you were younger?
Well, yes, fascinatingly, I suppose, like a lot of young boys, I did see heroes in sporting worlds. You grew up in Northern Ireland, and everybody is obsessed with George Best, who was, and we would argue, the greatest golfer, the greatest footballer in the world. I liked to always pick out sporting heroes, and I must say, Seve Ballesteros, your countryman, was very much a hero of mine, and he was in that same George Best sort of Muhammad Ali style, Ayrton Senna style of sporting hero who almost transcends the sport, who have that sort of a look that is very different to the norm. And I went and I saw Seve playing. He won the Irish Open in 1982, and me and a couple of friends went down on the train and saw him playing down there. And I remember seeing him and thinking, that is, that's the pinnacle of sporting achievement, because he was incredible at that stage. So yeah, I was a very big fan of, although my golf was rubbish at that stage, but I saw Seve and I must say he inspired me.
So you finished uni, did you go straight to work?
Yes, I came back to Northern Ireland, and at that stage, Northern Ireland was still, this was 1991, Northern Ireland was still a pretty rough place to be. The economy was dreadful, unfortunately, as it is again now, but the economy was dreadful and there were no jobs. So as I say, I set up a business with one of my closest friends, and we set up a sandwich business. And we bumbled our way through it, doing some stuff very well, some stuff not so well. But we were in the right place at the right time. The market was good for us. Northern Ireland was coming out of the Troubles. We had a very good product. We had a lot of sort of early 20s kind of enthusiasm, and we managed to grow a very successful business within a relatively short period of time.
If you could meet anybody from the past or the present, I can envisage who those be. Who would they be?
It would always be Seve.
Yeah.
It would always be Seve. I used to do a little bit of motor racing years ago, and I used to always imagine that Ayrton Senna was sitting beside me. And as much as anything else, that allowed me to sort of sit there and think whenever you were doing something stupid. I used to have him here as this sort of very enigmatic figure who would sit beside me, and he didn't really even have to say anything. But it would contain the way that I would drive. The Seve became my Senna in terms of the golf. So I literally did the entire year with my not fictional but virtual Seve on my shoulder, and he was still alive then. And I would have these imaginary conversations with him every time I was doing something stupid, which was relatively regularly. But because when he would offer me these words of advice, and I sort of got the concept through from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, where he talks about having in a mental mastermind that you can sit down there and imagine all of these people, Ayrton Senna, it's not always just going to be sporting ones, but Seve, I'm not quite sure how great the advice that George Best might give you would be, but those people who
have give you some great advice.
I'm sure he could, yeah, and certainly as a teenager, as a boy in my 20s, I would have taken it, but you can sit and imagine, if you can get into your brain enough, you can really see, well, what would Seve say? What would Ayrton Senna say to me in this particular situation? Or putting out various business leaders.
So at 37,
yeah,
you said, I think I can take this to the next level. I want to become a professional golfer.
Well, I wanted to try and break par within a year. I wanted to be able to shoot a par or sub-par round. And at that stage, I couldn't break 100. So that was the task, that was the goal, but I was still running the garden centres at that stage. I still had 120 staff, had a very busy business. So I was trying to do all of this within the context
Your
of having
family and that
absolutely.
side. Yeah,
And I mean, I joke about it in a relatively flippant fashion, but the theory was I mustn't annoy my partner so much that they turf me out of the business, and I mustn't get divorced. And so I need to try and cram all of this in, as well as working the guts of 50 hours a week. But those were the basic rules, and I sort of gave up and focused on that, almost to the detriment of nearly everything else. But as I say, while still not not massively annoying my wife.
So your idea behind it was, this is what I want to do.
Yes.
And then you think, okay, well, this is how I'm going to do it.
Yes.
Which was basically model anybody or everybody who you thought was worth modelling.
Very much so.
Obviously, very importantly, Seve.
Yes.
You read, and I suppose, and hit a lot of balls and practiced a lot, but you did this intensively.
Yes.
For a year.
Yes.
And when you decided that this is what you wanted to do, and you asked a professional golfer, you mentioned he gave you the title, didn't he?
Well, this is it. Yes. Well, I had a very clear idea in my mind that I thought actually this was possible, and I don't really know where that belief came from. I think with any challenge like this, it's incredibly important to have that belief. But I did have it to begin with. I mean, it was probably coupled with a little bit of naivety. But
did you see yourself playing? Did you have a feeling? I mean,
I mean, I have
you had all these pictures.
Spectacularly overly imagined imagination, and I used that all the time. I played that round, that perfect round of golf every night as I went to sleep. So I used a lot of those kinds of techniques. As you say, I modelled a lot. I watched the Seve short game video endlessly over and over and over again.
You visualised all these
situations. I literally slurped myself into, it's a revolting term, into Seve, because I wanted to feel as if when I play, even all my short game, I am imagining myself with his white shirt, the blue Slazenger V-neck and the shoes. I even talk like Seve in my...
You see through his eyes.
I do the whole thing. All of my... I talk like Seve in my head. I mean, this is a slightly, embarrassing admission, but that's the way I play my short game. And that was one of the key techniques in the whole thing.
Other techniques you had was, obviously, you said you had Seve there with you all the time.
Yeah.
Now, was he standing there with you? He was talking to you? Was he giving you advice?
He was, yes, to a extent. As I said, most of it was relatively silent. But
you had his presence. He was.
I had his presence there, and to come back to what we were saying earlier, yes, I mean, it was Sam Torrance who then told a friend of mine to dream on. So I had, I tried to get hold of Seve, but of course Seve was already ill at that stage. But I had a lot of current big name golfers saying to me that it wasn't possible. But I think if you can create this mental map of, if you have Seve, and I also used Ben Hogan a lot, if you can have these characters out there, these utterly inspirational characters, whether they are alive or not, that you can have there perhaps providing you with that, what you can do it. Just keep at it, keep going. You can manage to push away a lot of that negative thought that's coming through. Not necessarily, I mean, Sam Torrance didn't mean anything bad by it. He was just presented with a slightly daft story, so he came up with that.
So you got 83 rejections for your book?
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, you kept going.
I kept going, yeah.
And now, how many books have you sold?
Well, I probably on a worldwide basis, I suppose we've maybe sold about 70,000, something 70, like that. 000. Yeah. So it's been...
I wonder what those other 82 publishers are thinking now.
Well, the interesting thing is one of them keeps contacting my agent and going, what's he doing next? Please don't cut us out of this. So yeah, it's that's a nice feeling. But it's a very transient feeling. You feel it's going to be wonderful to go, to those people. But actually,
it's not about that.
It's not about that. It's interesting.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, I think that's kind of the beauty of where we live in now. Technology, and is that if you have an idea and you believe in it,
yes.
You can go and publish it yourself.
Absolutely,
you can create a blog. I mean,
absolutely.
You read stories of people that write blogs all of a sudden they've got, a book deal. So there's no reason to not go forward and follow your dream.
Very much so.
Okay, so what fascinated me about your book was that all the whole service story. So what would you like to teach others when it came down to? Because I know you're involved in obviously teaching people how to, run their coffee shops, and you've got a couple of things about obviously the golf as well. But what else would you like to teach others? Well,
I think we're doing a lot of work with a number of other different training organisations, and I do a lot of hands-on work with coffee shops. But beyond that, because that's very practical work that we do, but beyond that, one of the things that we've been working on and discovered is that basically most of these projects have managed to put me into that sort of top 1%. And when you get into the top 1% of whatever the market is, even if it's a sales guy, kind of magical things happen. You know, 86% of Americans say they would like to write a book. Only 1% ever do. Exactly. And out of that sort of 1.2 million books that are on sale in the US, a tiny fraction, less than 2%, ever sell more than 5,000 copies. So if you can really stick at that thing and get yourself into that top 1%, as I say within the book, amazing things do happen, as we discussed earlier. You know, it's being made into a film now. So doors open to those people who really stick their neck out. And the same thing with the golf. Less than 1% of golfers ever break par. But it is a wonderful feeling to feel that you have nobody ever masters golf, but have mastered it to an extent where you can take that par level and have managed to reach that. So what I think the point is, that if you can, and we've broken it down, that most of those projects took me about 1,000 hours. 20 hours a week over a year. If you can put 20 hours a week over a year on top of what you're doing into dedicated, focused, hard work towards that goal, whatever it may be, whatever the expertise is. The sales guy puts an extra 20 hours in to really, really get good at it. I don't just mean doing a few extra calls. I mean continual improvement. You can put yourself into that top 1%. I mean, I'm not a writer. I failed my English literature. I got a C in my my ordinary English language. But I managed to get a book out there by really learning to an extent what it is, the type of book that people want to read as much as anything else. You can, if you keep digging over a year, you can make massive transformations in your life. And I think that's the message that fascinates me more than anything else, rather than people thinking, I can't do it, or, you know, I'm never going to be one of those guys because of all of these reasons. If you really put the head down for a year, in almost for whatever it is, you can get very good at something. Now, I'm not talking about a sort of a 10,000 hours Malcolm Gladwell becoming Tiger Woods. That's a whole different game. What I'm saying is, to be the top 1% in almost anything, it doesn't take much more than about 1,000 hours of really dedicated focus.
Brilliant. John, thank you very much. I really enjoyed
Pleasure.
it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for viewing Inspiring People. And till the next time. Thank you very much.